you know, and all the other silly things that are important now,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you didn't even know it's there. You didn't even care about it. I mean, you know it's there, but it's like it doesn't even matter. It doesn't stand out anymore, right? So this is how the meaning of being makes things, entities as entities. The way that I said that, those things were there, they just never stood out. That's what being makes possible. Being is the background against which things stand out, right? So now there's things like strollers and high chairs and car seats and baby pajamas and
Noise machines.
noise machines.
Yeah.
They're very useful to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure you get the one that makes the right sound and it's loud enough but not too loud. Yeah, those are great to have. Yeah. Okay, anybody else? Quickly? Another example?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn how to play piano.
Okay.
So one of the things is looking up music, hearing melodies, hearing chords.
Yeah.
And, practicing on fingering and all that stuff.
Right. And the more and more that you are invested in the idea that I really want to play the piano and I want to play whatever songs and stuff really well, the more you'll carry that around with you everywhere, right? And be thinking about it. You'll find connections to it wherever you can. You see a piano and you think, okay, what kind of piano is that? And how would it sound? Could I sit down and play it? Would it be socially acceptable here? And all that kind of stuff, yeah. Good. Yep, another example of that. Yeah, okay, so you seem to understand how that works, right? Dasein assigns itself a possibility, and then it frees up things to have involvement, to matter, gives them significance, right? Just the way that can be said. Now, in the world that we live in, remember Dasein is always being in the world. Dasein does it differently than just being in the world as if you were alongside other things. Because every bit of equipment refers to and in order to. So a hammer is for making a house, but that house isn't just its own end. You make a house for someone to live in, right? So there is always, at the end of all these references and involvements, the thing that gives significance to all equipment is your Dasein and your Dasein with others, right? And in fact, it may sound like, and I mistakenly, if I want to pull back from that, it made it sound like I meant those were two different things. Like your Dasein is somehow different from Dasein with others, right? And the deception here is that we are accustomed to thinking of ourselves as an independently existing thing, me. And you are over there, an independently existing thing, and that you and me are not the same thing. You're you and I'm me. And what you do is what you do, and it doesn't make me what I am, and what I do is what I do, and doesn't make you what you are, right? So that we think of ourselves as being bounded or stopped at the border of our skin, right? Like, this is me. And it's independent from that you, right? But what you should see with this analysis of existence, Dasein is not a thing independently existing in the world, separable from its environment. What Dasein is care. And care doesn't stop at the skin. Well, just in simple ways, care spreads out into all kinds of things in my environment. Anything I call mine, I have a certain kind of care for. And I take care of my stuff. Or I don't take care of my stuff, which is just a deficient way of caring for it still, right? And I expect that you will care about my stuff at least in such a way that you don't treat it badly. Right? Like if I just walked up and grabbed your phone and threw it against the wall as hard as I could, This is not appropriate behavior. But it's outside of the boundaries of you, but would you still take that as offensive to you? Absolutely, right? And it's not even that I just broke your, violated your personal space. If your phone was sitting over here and I grabbed it and threw it, it would still be offensive to you, right? It's not that I'm getting close or far away, because you are not, for Heidegger, this thing. You're not a present at hand thing, right? So what are you then? You are this little bundle of energy called care. It's a certain kind of energy that spreads out into your environment, and it doesn't just spread out a little bit here or there. It spreads out to the whole environment. And everything in that environment is you, in some form or other, whether you accept it or not. And that means even the Dasein that's in your environment is you, in that way that they shape care. And they have something to do with your care and how you care and what you care about, right? For instance, you don't care so much about the inanimate objects in this room as you do about the people. You have to care about them more. And how does it show up that you care? Well, you probably don't think about it very much, but do you worry? And you might not do this explicitly to yourself. You might not be aware of it. Do you worry what the other people in this room think of you? I guarantee, though you don't recognize it always, you are always operating within the boundaries of how other people care about you and how you care about them. It dominates your behavior, and we'll see why. It just isn't the thing that's conspicuous, right? Your care and how other people are shaping the way you care right now is not conspicuous. But that doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means it's working. It's doing its job. Your care is just functioning fine with others and other people, and that's because everybody is being good students right now. You're all sitting quietly, you're doing your thing, you're looking like you're interested, you're all kind of inconspicuous to each other. And me as professor, I'm relatively inconspicuous as a professor because I'm just doing what I should be doing, right? But if I suddenly turned on some like techno music, started dancing in a weird way and pulling my clothes off and stuff, suddenly you would all get really uncomfortable, right? How is it if you didn't care that that could even happen? Wouldn't be possible. I couldn't make you uncomfortable if you weren't in some way or other with me together. As in, if all you are is care, and I can deeply impact your experience of care, then what does that say about us? We together share cares when we're in the world together. And if we're sharing cares and all you are is care, then what are we? We're together. We're not separate things, separable from one another. We're not independent. You do not get to choose to live your life as if the people in your life don't matter. You can say that to yourself all you want to, you're just being stupid. Nobody lives that way. You cannot live that way. Dasein does not have that option. As a possible way for it to be independent is not a possible way for it to be. It's not among its possibilities. Rocks can be independent. They don't have Dasein. Chairs can be independent. They don't have Dasein. They can be merely present at hand or whatever else, but they don't have care. And if you have care, by definition, your care is spread out in the world, and whatever is in the world is your care. Like it or not. That's how it goes. So you could try to turn away from the people in your life, but that's a way of caring. And it's still in submission to them. It's like people who wear only black clothes, paint their fingernails black, goths or whatever that is, right? Because they're not going to be like anybody else. Well, who's defining what the norm is that they're going to break tradition with?
Yeah.
They are, or is the norm already there and they're like, no, I'm not going to be like that, so I'm going to run off and be this nonconformist. But then who's leaving the ground, who's setting the ground for you to be a nonconformist against? So what if everybody else came to school in black, started wearing black? Then what? You're going to wear pink now. Who's in control? Oh, I don't care what you guys are wearing. I'm just wearing black because I like it. BS. Right? It's care. But if we define ourselves as care, what you have to understand then is you're not an independent being. Never have been, never will be. Be very careful about who you share your environment with because they are you. And you are them. And they shape that notion of care. And the word for that is solicitude, right? Solicitude is that way of being in the world with others. And that means they and I have care. Now, we can be with others in active ways, leaping in or leaping ahead, right? Anybody want to summarize these really quickly? What is leaping in?
Taking care of someone else's care and like caring for them.
Yeah. This is dominating care, right? Taking more than your fair share. Absorbing, you know, this is like the, if care was like candy, and you could count it in little bits, and everybody had to just dump their candy into piles on the floor, leaping in is like taking more than your fair share. You're going to absorb everybody else's care. Or if care was like magnetic waves, leaping in is like turning your magnet on to super high and absorbing everybody else's power around you and dominating, right? Trying to hold on to it more, right? So then what is leaping ahead?
One other design, clear space for you.
Yeah, it's clearing space, right? Clearing space. I don't know for sure, but when Heidegger said, you know, for the first time, he sort of implies that this book may be one of the first, but not only, no, I shouldn't say that. I think that he would say maybe Plato and Aristotle, he loves to talk about Aristotle, maybe cleared some space too. Maybe his teacher Husserl cleared some space to help him to think through these things. But leaping ahead is where you clear out space. You might take over somebody's care for a little while, but with the intention of giving it back to them free or freer than it had been before, so that they can decide for themselves what is worth caring over, right? Instead of trying to channel their care, you're trying to free it up from the ways that it has already been dominated, right? But in order to do that, you have to, of course, grab them and get their attention and show them what they are, right? So you see yourself for your first time and see yourself as care and be free in order to shape it for yourselves. So then he jumps from that into the they, because most of the time what we do is live our lives with others. And we're going to read a bunch out of the book here to get the they. So turn with me. Before we leave this. Leaping ahead involves two characteristics. He only says this kind of on the slide, and then he doesn't talk a lot about it because he's not writing a book of ethics, so we're going to push it in the way of ethics. And so I want to talk about these two things. Two ways in which leaping ahead happens. One is forbearance, and the other is considerateness. I don't think that Heidegger means merely politeness with considerateness, right? To be considerate of others. What does it mean to be considerate of somebody else?
Thoughtful.
Thoughtful? That's good. Yeah, to be thoughtful. Let's get an example. When would be a time when you would say, that was very considerate of you? Like, what would somebody do in order for you to think that or say that?
When they go out of their way to do something for you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good sort of description of the general thing we're after. So now let's get a really concrete example of that. When is a time when someone has gone out of their way to do something for you in that way that you would call being considerate?
I'm holding the door open for you.
Okay, somebody holds the door open for you while you've got your hands all full.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right? You would say that's very considerate. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you're driving and you need to turn right, sometimes cars will move over
So you can actually get over. Yeah, that's very considerate, right? Like the person who sits there and they're going to go straight and you want to turn right and they have all kinds of room. They could just move forward and you could go, but they don't even seem to see. You've got your blinker on that you want to turn right. What do you think of those people? Inconsiderate, right? Inconsiderate jerk, not noticing that they're sharing the world with others, right? Is how we might think of it, right? That is, everybody else in the world is less important than me. That's being inconsiderate, right? But inconsiderateness can also happen not intentionally, right? Like when my kids leave dishes in the sink. Do you think they're thinking to themselves when they do it, I'm really going to piss my dad off. Yeah, I'm going to show him. He's been such a jerk lately. Take that, Dad. Leaving my dishes there for you. Like, do you think that's what they're thinking, actually thinking? No way. No, I don't think so. That would be funny if they were. That'd be great. But I doubt it. That's like passive aggressive behaviors, right? Where you intentionally are inconsiderate. So how does inconsiderate happen most of the time? Inconsiderateness. If it's not intentional, it's usually then unintentional. You don't even know that you're being inconsiderate, right? You don't even notice that you're causing trouble for somebody else or not making life easier for them at the very least, right? And in our average everyday lives, the norm, and we'll talk about this more when we get to Spinoza, but the norm is inconsiderateness. That is just the norm.